This is the G Shit podcast where we focus on family, friends, finances, freedom, and our future, and everything else. Today, we got a special guest, actor, comedian, Quan Wiggins. We getting right to it. This is the G Shit podcast. Thank y'all for joining live.
No talk back. You see the drink yet?
Y'all know what it is, man. This is the G podcast where we focus on family, friends, finances, freedom, and our future, and everything else. This is the G podcast. We are live, and we got the one and only Quan Wiggins in the building. Quan, shout out to you for joining, man. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you, brother. Appreciate you for having me on, man. Appreciate you.
Man, this is going to be a great episode. Quan and I, actually, I first met Quan in elementary school at good old Forest View Elementary. I got to get right to it, Quan, because I know we were respecting the time. So I got to get right to this. Like, before I don't even want to introduce you. I got to ask you a question. Like, what brought you to Durham from Bertie County to Forest View Elementary School? What even brought you to the city? I got to know.
Funny, man. Well, man, because that was fourth grade. So during that time, we was living with my mom, my brother and sister. We was living in the projects in Elizabeth City at the time, right before. And, I'm talking about, we was like welfare, food stamps, WIC, the whole nine. And during this period, that's when my mom had started getting a job and everything. And she had worked her way out of that situation to a point where she got a job with like a research company in RTP. So she was able to move us up to Durham, out the projects, you know what I'm saying? First townhouse, upstairs, downstairs, little patio deck. So, I mean, we was lit, man. That was like such a bittersweet, because you miss the people that you knew, but I don't even know what to say, man. Just coming to an apartment with an upstairs, downstairs, that was
moving up.
Man, yeah.
Word up, man. Like, those early beginnings from Eastern North Carolina, like, what were some of your initial impressions moving to Durham when you first got here?
I was surprised at how much the kids cussed. You know what I mean? Like, where we come from, I lived in the projects, the kids were bad, but we just didn't cuss. Like, you got hit by your mom and just getting on the bus and everybody was cussing. And I'll never remember, I said I was coming from the projects. I remember on the bus and everybody was roasting people. You on food stamps. And I was confused because I didn't know that was bad. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, when we got food stamps, that's when we got like the organic fruits and the snacks. So like, even hearing food stamps, like my mouth still waters to this day because I remember like, this was the time to eat. You know what I'm saying? So just hearing that was like, in the weirdest way, it was a culture shock to me. Yeah.
Word up. Yo, that's funny you say that because I cursed a lot as a kid and I still do to this day, unfortunately. It's tough for me to not curse when I'm speaking. It's just a part of my dialect. And this is just proof. When you grow up here, it sort of just gets you in some sort of way. Like, that's how everybody's talking. You try to fit in. Like, what was it like trying to maybe just fit in, if you will, from Bertie County and Durham? Like, did you feel like an outsider? Like, what was that experience like initially?
Well, I think the the fitting in wasn't the small town. So, even for our state, which would be a big town in our state, big city in our state, that wasn't the most difficulty of like the transition. The transition of going from project to not the project was the transition. Because where I was in the project, I literally had to fight every day to get home. Like every day I walked outside, I had to fight. And so I came to it was called Shannon Manor at the time.
Shout out to Shannon Manor.
Right?
Shout out to Shannon Manor, man.
So I'm trying to fight everybody. I'm talking about, Brent Hayes. Me and him fought at the bus stop.
Shout out to Brent.
I fought some dude named Juan. I remember I punched some dude named Brandon in the face at school. And I just didn't know. I was just so ready to fight.
Was Tim out there? Was Tim out there?
Tim Gertman?
Yeah.
Tim Gertman was the first person I met in the neighborhood. Actually, when I first came out there, he was like going to the mailbox.
Hey, shout out to Tim. Hey, shout out to Gert. I don't know if he watching, man. Shout out to Gert, man. We just put his whole government out there, but shout out to Gert, man.
Yeah.
Word up. Yo, shout out to everybody at Shannon Manor crew, man. You, Brent, like, so, you know, I grew up in Colonial. So, like, between Colonial, World Oaks, and Shannon Manor, there was like a trifecta of just like everybody kind of, we kind of all went to the same schools. And like me, I was in Colonial from first grade through college. So I didn't go anywhere else from that phase. So it's like, if you was in that ballpark, we all pretty much went and stayed together from elementary all the way up through high school. From my point of view and knowing you then, like, because I do want to get to like present day, because one, what you do now, like from artist to artist, as someone who has pursued their artistic dream and vision, like I admire people who have done what you've done, in that you didn't just pursue it, but like you really sacrifice a lifestyle and relocate it and went all in a way that, again, man, that right there is true passion. That right there is true passion, true dedication, and you, if you haven't already, will continue to reap rewards for decisions like that, in my opinion, because those are the real high risk, high reward, and those are the real things that make a difference in life, man. And so what's unique to me, though, because I remember watching some of your early stand-up here in Durham. I remember going to one of your joints. It was a little joint behind that Walmart off New Hope Cummings.
At Nightlife. At Nightlife.
Yeah, there we go. So I remember checking you out there, but before then, once we graduated high school, I remember started throwing parties in the area, and you was a part of in the mix. Brent, y'all had the parties going. Before then, I knew you as this, like, for lack of better words, jock, like very athletic, multi-sport type of guy in school. Like, you look, honestly, like how you look now. This is how you look when you was 16. Might have.
Yeah, basically, bro. Like I hit my growth, like I hit my top height in 7th grade. Like this height was 7th grade. Yeah.
Yeah. And you were definitely like super athletic. And I'm curious, like, when did your just passion start to shift from what I thought were more like sports, athletic driven to the arts and seeing yourself as an artist?
Man, that's a tough one. I think the performing arts was always in the back of my head, like, oh, when I'm done with football, I'm gonna do this. But I think the gears really started senior year. Me and Al Jackson, we had an audition for a play that year, Lil Abner, whatever. I mean, I don't even know, bro. Just doing that play was just a beautiful experience, man. It was like the closest thing I ever had to those butterflies, the excitement and the adrenaline rush that you got from playing football. That was the closest thing outside of that I ever got. So it was just, the wheels were turning. And then when I went to my first college at Winston-Salem State, they didn't honor the scholarship they had offered me, right? Right after I say this.
Oh, man.
They didn't honor the scholarship, man. And so that was a tough year. And then after that, I didn't do well academically. So I was going to go to Central to, do summer school and get my credits right. And then when I tried to go back to Winston, financial aid was like, nah. So I was like, all right. So I went back to Central and I'm like, okay, yo, I'm going to try out for football in the spring. And man, I don't know, man. I had the, man, it's a lot in there, but the seed of parties had been popped in my head at Winston when we was at like the table one day because I was real poor. And they was like, yo, this dude Prime Time, he was broke just like you or whatever till you started throwing the parties. So then once I got to Central, I had planned on trying out for football, but then I don't know. I don't even remember what came. Matter of fact, it was Miguel Pena. Remember Miguel Pena?
I do remember Miguel.
He was like big bro to me. And like, he was always talking like, yo, Quan, you got to get that party thing going, man. Get your business license. You know what I'm saying? You got to do this, man. I'm telling you, he'd get on me. Then I was like, all right, you're right, man. And I started the parties. I mean, that was it.
Yo, shout out to Miguel, man. He was a real solid dude. I do remember Miguel, man. That's crazy because now we going back through these thoughts here, talking to somebody that I actually grew up with. It's like, yeah, like these names. So it's dope to hear that he was an influence in helping you sort of get to that next level. And so you were throwing the parties, but like did you see yourself as throwing a party so that you could create a space for you to do your stand-up, or like were you just throwing parties trying to make money? Like at what point did the comedy actually say, you know what, I'm gonna write jokes and tell them to an audience?
Man, that's so when I was doing parties in the back of my head, I knew I wanted to be an actor at some point. The back of my head. And I was doing the parties because I don't know, I felt like it was entertainment, maybe it was gonna lead somewhere. I'm not even sure what exactly I was thinking. But I don't know. I kind of just fell in love with that whole creating something and then maintaining it because that was from scratch. And from there it was just a journey, bro. Because I remember at a point I was doing the parties and I was like, yo, I'm not sure if this is going to go where I wanted to go. So I stopped doing parties and I did spoken word. For like a year or two, bro. I was like the spoken word guy. And then from there, I just started hanging around the theater department. I was hanging around the theater department, did a few plays at Central. And then, I'm just kind of hanging around, just really figuring it out. I don't even remember what happened, but I just remember one year I put on my goals list. I was like, I'm going to try to do stand-up this year. It was because stand-up for me was not. I thought you had to be somebody, not me, to be a comedian. Like people like who was it? Was Cat Williams was popular at the time. I wish I could remember who was, but that persona, it felt like you had to be, yo, I'm keeping it real. It felt like you had to be somebody that wasn't me, so I didn't think I could do it. And it was on my to-do list. And the people I was hanging with in the clubs like, yo, you should do it. You should do it. You should do it. And then eventually I finally worked up the nerve. Mr. Chambers at Central, he had an open mic. Actually my video production professor, and he had an open mic, and that was where I went to try it out at Papa Mojo was the name of the spot. Yeah, Papa Mojo's over on 5554.
They're not there no more under the same.
Yeah, they were gone a minute ago.
Yeah. That's crazy. So you said video. So what did you study there at Central?
English and mass communication. So mass comm, but it was paired with the English. That's what's crazy about it. It was paired with the English department at the time. So we had to take all these English classes and, reading all these stories and Macbeth and, we're reading these stories and having to analyze them. And like, I hated it like with all my heart. And then on the flip side of that ended up being what I ended up pursuing. Like I would have never guessed that how the English part was probably like the most direct thing to where I am now.
Can we talk about that? Like, because as I've grown older, I've started to, I think, highlight or realize value in education in ways that I didn't necessarily anticipate. And I think oftentimes when we're young and in school, we're like, when are we ever going to use this? Like, why am I reading such and such? And then you fall into a career and you're like, yo, I'm getting paid to basically the fundamentals of just like reading, math, writing, like at a high level. The higher and higher you go, like those are the skills that push people like through to I would say like executive levels, and then you be in the boardrooms. It's all a bunch of papers with writing. Somebody wrote that shit and somebody's got to read it and got it interpreted and understand it. Like, so like from your point of view, like what would you do different if you in that undergraduate experience, seeing how you study what you study now, knowing you're doing what you're doing now, like what would you go do different? Or if you could go back, what would you do different to prepare yourself for what you're doing now?
Man, that's tiered, man. So if I'm thinking about the arts, I think like early on, I knew like I wanted to say like pursue. And it's so weird because I keep talking about acting, but I'm a comedian. You're like, wait, what? I knew I wanted to pursue act. But if you talk about doing acting, where we're from, people would just tell you how that's a horrible decision. If you fail, you're going to have to teach. There's no future in that. So it was, but I knew I would have, if I could go back, I would have accepted what I knew in my heart I wanted to do. And I would have possibly majored in theater at Central or even Winston, but I think in my heart, I knew I wanted to get out of town. I wanted to get to like a big city. I would have jumped cities and went to like an acting school. You know what I mean? Because I used to look at the brochures back then, but I was just like, I don't know. But so from an artistic standpoint, I would have went to acting school at that point. But from like a business standpoint, man. And this is the thing you can't do when you're older, though. Every single thing those professors and teachers and adults told us, you get to it on the other side.
Right.
I remember they always say, hey man, you got to network.
Right.
Because life teaches you, nobody cares what you can do. Nobody cares if you're good at it. Are you my friend? And are you connected to somebody that could benefit me?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's what it ends up being. But they would tell us that you kind of just, it kind of goes in and goes back out. And Dr. Mack at Central, she used to always be talking about having your resume together and thinking about what job you can get. Taking your experiences and applying that, because it's still the same thing. As an actor, I have to go through my acting reels, and then I have to write down what are my experiences in the most selling way, so people will want to work with me in that regard. Then as a comedian, the whole job is branded. Being funny is for the artist. In terms of business, it's about your brand. So those things never go away. Being prepared, my goodness, man. Like from an actor standpoint, doing the college theater, man, I used to be the last one to get off book when I did those plays. I wasn't the best at character development. The director would push me into that. Coming on the flip side of it, in the city, get an acting job and show up to rehearsal and don't know your lines, and watch how quick you get fired, which has happened to me before. It's happened to me before. I got the shoot was that weekend, and I showed up, man. And when I see the actors that was on there, man, I don't know everybody's name, but it was one chick from Being Mary Jane, and there was another dude from Power and Wu-Tang. Man, I show up like such a comedian, bro, because I'm just looking at, I did the audition and I got it. And, to me, it's just a date on my calendar. Had the script for a month, never looked at it. I showed up to the rehearsal, and, I'm at that time, I used to ad-lib whenever I would act. That was just my thing for whatever reason. So I'm in there like ad-libbing, trying to be funny. The other scene partner, he's laughing. So I'm like, oh, word. I'm just like not knowing that he's in the scene. I'm being such a comedian, trying to make them laugh or whatever. And, just like some hood type of thing, right? And then the director, she just like looking at me. Looking at me, bro. And then as the rehearsal goes on, she was just like, hey, do you have any Timbs? And I was like, and at the time, bro, I used to wear like Steve Madden boots. You know what I'm saying? Because if you wear like, this the thing that a lot of people don't know is like when you a broke dude and you trying to hide the poverty, if you wear like a nice watch and some Steve Madden boots, women can't easily identify how much money you do or don't have.
Oh man, so that's the cheat code,
right? They never know. So that was my thing at that time, right? And so I'm looking at myself like, yo, this is how I dress, She just like, okay. And then, we're doing it. And I think something happened where I got loud. And, as an actor, my Southern accent is a negative because most films, people don't have my accent. It's New York and LA types of sound, even though that's not the sound of the majority of the country. That's the sound of TV and film is New York and LA. So as I got loud, my full accent comes out. And she's like, yo, where you from? And everybody from our town, we prideful people. I was like, yeah, I'm from Durham, North Carolina. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, well, this character's kind of supposed to be from Brooklyn. Huh. And she was just like that. And then, the shoot was that weekend. Like 2 days passed and nobody hit me up about like where the shoot is going to be. So I'm like, okay, I emailed them, didn't hear nothing. 2 more days passed. Hey, we're moving in a different direction. Thank you for your services. And I was pissed off at that time. But in retrospect, I know if I would have showed up, let's say I didn't have the accent in the boots, right? But if I showed up knowing my lines, she would have worked with me.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I showed up completely unprepared. And obviously I would never do that again. But a huge lesson was learned from that. And going back to those professors who talked to you about being prepared. The simplest lesson.
I
doing
appreciate
your homework.
I appreciate you sharing that. I do appreciate you sharing that because, as a professional, and so part of my job as a professional, I work with a lot of our new hires who come in fresh out of school. They struggle with what we're talking about right here, right now. They struggle with being thorough and prepared for the job at hand. Like, it's one thing to show up, but it's another to show up like knowing your lines, for lack of better words. And not just as an actor, but you got to know your lines, and no matter what role you're in. Like, I think it's a bigger metaphor for how we show up for life to some degree, because if you don't know your lines and you didn't put in the prep, like at the end of the day, you don't know when the movie will get shot, you don't know when it'll get released or anything, but you don't stand a chance unless you do what's within your control to move the needle forward. And so, like, I appreciate you sharing that sort of experience and how it sort of in retrospect helped you. I guess what my question is like, when you were transitioning into this space as a artist, actor, doing more of the fine arts, like before you left North Carolina, like, did you have any humbling experiences locally that like where you was like, man, like I'd be curious to hear what was that like for you in terms of maybe something that might have humbled you early on before you even got to New York, like just here being in North Carolina.
I mean, everything about when you're a stand-up comedian, everything is humbling because it's an art form that you can't lie with. You know what I mean? You can't tell lies, meaning that if you don't know what you're doing, you can't fake it. You know what I mean? If you're on stage telling jokes that aren't yours or aren't your perspectives, the audience is going to read, right through that or whatever. So that the art form is constantly humbling you to, tell the truth. You lying today. You trying too hard. Tell the truth. So those are always happening at the beginning because, as a beginner, what happens is you're the funny guy in your friend group. You know what I'm saying? You're like, I make my friends laugh all day. I can be a comedian. But then when you go to a show, these are strangers and they don't know you.
Yeah.
And so what would happen early on is I would do stuff on campus and I'd be hilarious. Then I'd go to like the local comedy spot. I think it was Time Out on 55 Miami Boulevard or something like that at the time, right? And then I would bomb. And I was like so confused. I was like, how come I'm so funny here, but not here? And I didn't understand that for a while. And then eventually, obviously, your set gets better, right?
And that's just in Durham. Like,
that's
not
in
even
Durham,
like
right?
that's not even like a crazy, spread of like differences, if you will. Like, this is like just going from one part of Durham to another. It didn't resonate.
Yeah, just because they're not your. And on top of that, I'm a college. What happens is you're a college kid. Most comedy audiences are like 30 and up on average. You may have some sprinkles of some younger folk, but in general, it's 30 and up. So you got some college kid in there, and these people have lived life. I'm showing up wearing orange polo shoes at the time. You know what I'm saying? Like, and the host roasted me that night too. I was so tight. I was so tight, bro. She was like, "This nigga I don't earn shoes," and I was like, "Come on," because I thought, we used to get. Because back then we would go to TJ Maxx, get the polos, then go to whatever the mall, get the polo shoes, put it all together. And we was poloed out back then. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, these polos, you talking about? And so
this is a
that
fact.
happens, right? So eventually I start doing more shows and I get decent, right? And I'm feeling, and I remember at the time, I remember how it happened, but I was feeling myself. And they did Wild Out Wednesday, and I'm going in with the jokes that I would never tell today. I'm going in, and one of the worst jokes. It was two jokes two that really tipped it over, right? So I do some joke. Never say this today. I'm enlightened. I am woke. Would never say that today. I say something about like, yeah, man, you ever see those Muslim women with the thing like that? I was like, man, they be covered from head to toes, can't see nothing but they ankles. What did I say? I can't remember what I said. I said, but then I went from that to I tried to be a Muslim. The messed up part, I gave up pork but started eating more with JJ, right? And the audience, they're laughing, but they still with me. And then it was like this legally blind dude on campus, right? Who, if you was a dude, he could see. If he was a girl, then he was like, hey, can you help me cross the street? So I'm starting to joke on him. I was like, yo, you ever see that dude with the little stick? That blind dude? And the moment I said that,
oh man, yo.
I'm like, no. I'm gonna bring it back. Boo. And the thing is, the joke wasn't even mean. I was just gonna say, I skipped him in like the what they call the Eagle's Nest with like the Pizza Hut and all. I would say I skipped him in the line. And he was like, I see you. That was it, right? It wasn't even me. Boo. And it was nothing I could do. I had to walk off the stage, man. I'm talking about,
Wow.
that was the most heartbreaking night of my life. And I remember I like disappeared. Everybody was texting me like, yo, where you go? Where you go? Cats was like, yo, Quan must have took an airplane up out of here the way he got out here so fast, man. From there, going around town, right? Months later, I think I'm at Walmart with like some chick, right? Cashier is like, yo, don't I know you from somewhere? I was like, I don't know, man. And then he was like, wait, oh, you the dude that tried to pick on the blind dude and got booed. So like
Oh,
cats around town,
wow.
and there was a stain that stuck with me, man, for a while. So that
Wow.
was like humbling punch number one in Durham. And you know what did that humble? I thought you could just, I don't even know, bro. I thought I started to do so well. You start to feel yourself and think like, yo, I can just, because I would just come up with jokes like the night before at that time and then go on stage and just do it. You know what I mean? But that taught you a lesson in learning how to work the crowd, especially, you know, that part. And then from there, I did the homecoming show. Again, you know, I'm kind of nervous about the boo. You know, Lil Duval was there, Tony Roberts, and Sean Larkins. And they did the homecoming show. You know, I go out and I did very well. And a part of me in my mind is saying, yo, when they see me do well, they gonna take me on tour, right? So I'm backstage talking to Lil Duval, and he was like, yo, man, Tony Roberts was watching you, man. He thinks you're funny. I was like, word. I was like, yeah, what about you? He was like, yeah, I thought you did good, too. I was like, word, man, can we exchange numbers or whatever, you know, network? He was like, yeah. We'll do all that after the show.
Oh, man.
And, bro, I was crushed after that, bro, because
Oh, man.
in my head, I don't. And Tony Roberts, this is the weird part about it. Tony Roberts, so I said, all right, let me try Tony. He was like, yo, man, I asked him for this number. He's like, yo, man, just hit me on Facebook. That's how everybody communicate with. And I thought he was trying to, right.
Yo, oh,
the next
man.
part of that, though. Once I got to New York, all comedians communicate on Facebook.
Wow.
So he was giving me a direct contact, but I thought he was trying to play me at the time. So I never.
Sounds like a is trying to play you for real. Yeah, that definitely sounds like he trying to play you. But that's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So okay, so I'm sorry. Were you done with that though? Did you have more to add there?
No, but that was it. It was just crushing and humbling, because I thought, so basically you get into this business and you think you're special. You know, you think things are gonna happen for you. I guess just because you're you. And there was nothing I did at those moments to earn somebody saying, hey, let me take you on tour. I did good at my own school. You know, you should do good at your own school, you know? So that was crushing and just humbling to open my eyes up to the obstacles that this business was really going to have.
Before I get to the obstacles in the current business, because I am curious, you know, what that's been like, essentially starting from scratch in a city like New York, where they say you make it there, you make it anywhere. Where I feel the same about Durham. You make it out of Durham as a especially from a black male perspective. You make it out and you manage to not get locked up long term, get caught up in the court system, get criminalized, able to pursue your passions as an adult. Like, many of us don't even leave Durham, if I'm being honest. Like, it stays here. And so like, having gone through that experience, how did you then say, man, I'm going all in on New York City? How do we get to that point where you're like, I'm taking what I have and I'm going to New York City to just give it all I got? How do we get to that? Did you even have a couch to sleep on? I want to know, like, what gave you that thought, and what did you go up there with ultimately at the beginning?
Man, so with that, man, and in retrospect, bro, I think it was probably a stupid decision on the basis that I made it, on why I made that decision. Because at that time, you know, I did Central, I did home. Remember, Central was like the biggest thing in the world to me at that time. I didn't think you could get bigger than Central. I didn't think you could do a bigger show than Homecoming. So once I did Homecoming twice. You know, I in Durham, I had been, you know, a football player who, you know, got recruited, names in the newspaper. Then I had been the party promoter, you know, got that reputation and, you know, did well in that for a while. And once I did Homecoming, I kind of felt like I tapped out in the area. I kind of felt like I thought I did it all I could do. And then I remember I was trying to get in at the local comedy club. At that time, it was called Charlie Goodnights. It's called Goodnights now.
Yeah.
And, you know, they had their, you know, the people that they would let in, but I wasn't one of them. And at the time, I thought they was trying to play me. You know, I'm 2 years in doing comedy, right? 2 years. I thought they was trying to play me like, yo,
Yo,
what's
can I
good?
just interject real quick? I don't know if this is because like I feel like always trying to play me too, bruh. I don't know if this is like just because we from Durham or what. Like this idea that when something don't go right, the initial like this motherfucker trying to play me, bruh. Like
Yeah,
where do you think that comes from? Because I feel it too. Where do you personally think that come from? I hate to cut you off, but I'm curious. Like, where do you think that feeling come from?
I think it's just because you self-love and self-belief. You know, you
Mm,
believe in yourself and love yourself so much that you can't fathom the idea that you may possibly not be ready yet. You may
mm,
possibly be not as good as you believe you are yet.
mm-hmm,
That don't mean it's not gonna come, but today you just, you're new, you're
mm-hmm.
inexperienced, and that's all it is. But you love yourself so much, you're like, yo, you just know, because when you walk through the world, you're walking through with your self-love and your belief. You know what you're capable of once you keep working at it. But everybody else only sees what you do right then in that
Right.
moment.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's a
that's
fact.
what it boils down to.
Word, yo, that's butter. I love yo that right there. I like the way you responded to that. That's on point, man. Because I relate to just when I meet a roadblock, my first thought is like, you got me fucked up. Like what don't you get here? Like, you know what I'm saying? And so like I relate to that feeling of like what you mean? Like, you mean you try to play me. So I didn't mean to cut you off, but like I relate to that so much, man. So I'm sorry to cut you off, but as you were saying.
Yeah, no, I mean 100% though, bro. So so with all that, I felt like at that time I just knew that I was a star, and I said,
Mm,
yo, the only thing that's missing is New York. They just got to see me. Just got to get, got to get to New York. Well, at the time I wanted to go to Atlanta and then LA actually, because Atlanta was the most magical city to me at that
right,
time.
right.
And so in my mind, I'm just saying I need to go to a bigger city. So I go and live with my mom back in the country. I'm in like Perquimans County this time around, right?
I don't even know where that is as a North
It's near
Carolinian.
Elizabeth City. It's back on the East Coast or whatever. Where you walk outside, you see the horizon, like it's like that type of country.
Word.
Like
That's nice
it's
though.
beautiful.
That's nice.
It's
Yeah, I said that's
it's
nice though.
beautiful. It's
Yeah.
beautiful, man. I'm not gonna lie to you. I remember seeing wild turkeys on the way home, and yeah, it's like the real country. You want something to eat, you just go to the river, fish if you really want to.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Um,
Beautiful.
so I go there, and the plan is like, hey, I'm gonna go here, and then I'm gonna go to Atlanta, and I'm gonna go to LA. Nothing I was trying to do down there worked out, but also during this time, my dad's side of the family, I've never met my dad. They found me or whatever and reached out to me on Facebook. So we're kind of just in communicating lightly. And while I'm down in the country, when brother's like, yo, man, we gotta finally meet. So I'm gonna send you a ticket. You come up here and meet everybody in February or whatever. And so February of 2012, I went to New York City for the first time in my life. And I don't even know what to say. I was just blown away. And I'm not gonna lie to you, I fell in love with the city.
Wow.
I can't even lie about it. It was the coolest thing I'd ever seen. And my brother's just telling me, yeah, you come up here, man, get you a job, man. You making like 25 an hour. That sound like big money. I'm like, word. At that time, because when I was in the country, I was working in a peanut factory overnight, 3 nights a week, minimum wage, which was $7.25.
Mm-hmm.
So you selling some 25 an hour, and I get to be in New York City. I'm like, bro, I'm there, right?
No question.
So so that was the catalyst that got me to New York City. Otherwise, I would have went the Atlanta route. So that's how New York happened.
Wow. And so when you get up there, like you had a couch to sleep on, or like what was those early stages
Yeah, I had
like for you?
with my brother. To
Mm-hmm.
sleep on when I first got here. So I was just, country boy in the city trying to figure it out, which was, obviously that was a weird homesick trying to figure out what New York was at that time, because, once you live here and you start really trying to live your life here, it's just like, wait, I'm talking about getting lost on the train every day.
Right.
I called my brother one day. I was like, yo, the train skipped the stop. And then he's like, where are you? I was like, I don't know, but I can see water. He was like, what? I don't know where you are, bro. I don't know how to help you. So I had to figure out, and I'm so scared because I just don't know where I am. Fortunately, I was able to figure it out. I don't even remember how I figured it out, but
You
my heart was
survive.
racing seeing that water, bro. Because I'm like, where am I? But now I know where that was. That was what they call Far Rockaway out in Queens area, whatever. Now, that's like you're going past the beach out towards I think somewhere in that vicinity you can get to the airports or whatever. But yeah, so moving to New York in itself was just a beast to get to know, and then getting to know the open, and then you say, hey, well, I want to do comedy, and then that was a weird thing because it's such a big city that the comedy scene is tiered. So like back home, there was the comedy club and there was comedy shows. And then you have an open mic here and there, but it wasn't really a big thing. And New York, it's like open mics. It's like bad open mics, good open mics. And then it's like produced shows for like beginner level comedians. Then it's like I guess you could call it the black scene. Then it's, I guess, the indie scene is kind of tied in with that. Then you got clubs, the comedy clubs or whatever. But when you first hear, you don't have access to the information to know up the chain. You know, so when you're asking around, everybody's sending you to open mics. And I'm like, what's the open mic? Because I'm from North Carolina. And you don't really have open mics. It's a show because there's audience. But open mic in New York, it's just a room with all comedians. There's no audience, and you got to do your joke in front of a person that's trying to do their jokes. So they're not paying attention to what you're trying to do. So, and just going to that scene, and it was just it was such a weird experience, bro. Like I remember, like I got at one mic, I was just nervous, and I'm holding sometimes a comedian hold the mic and lean on like the mic stand. So I'm leaning on the mic stand and I break it.
Did you like fall over and everything too?
No,
like...
I didn't fall. But then the rest of the mic, all the comedians went up and roasted me.
Of course, yeah.
For breaking the mic stand. And the part that made me the angriest about it was these niggas weren't funny. So to get roasted by a room full of people, you're like, yo, these niggas is corny. But I f***ed up, so I gotta take it. I mean, that was just like the cut and the twist, and that was hard. But yeah, so you learned that scene, and over time, people started to tell you about, hey, you come to this room in Harlem. I remember doing a show with like Smokey Suarez, and these people you see on Def Jam, comedian Mugga, you see Donnell Rawlins, at these rooms or whatever. I remember I saw Tracy Morgan at the movie theater, and I'm such a country boy and I remember that Kanye song, if you see your idol, I forgot how it goes. My big brother was big brother. He talks about seeing Jay-Z like, yo, I got to say something to him. So I'm thinking like that. I see Tracy. I'm like, yo, I got to say something to him. And, I see him and I say, hey, how you doing, man? I'm a comedian from North Carolina, man. I just want to know. I don't know why I asked this question of all questions. I said, yo, I just want to know what a comedy room's at. Like, where should I go? And he was like, I don't know. Hey, did that in like 10 years. And I just froze because I was just like, I didn't know what to say. You know what I mean? I don't know what I expected him to say either. But, he saw that I was just kind of froze. But he was like, man, what's your name? Like, Quan. He was like, yo, you funny? I was like, yeah. He's like, always say you funny, man. Always believe in yourself, man. Yo, if you want it, man, you'll figure it out. And that was.
Hey, man, shout out to Tracy because, hey, a lot of aren't even going to be that nice to you, if we're being honest. Like, a lot of people won't even say that to you when you on a come up, man. And that's crazy. So, like, I appreciate you sharing that story. And your team is over here sending me messages telling you busy and I got to let you go soon. So I'm going to respect the team's wishes and get you out of here soon. With that said, though, I hate to put you on the spot because I know we got to get you out of here, but I'm not done. You're going to come back on here so we can go in detail because I got more questions to ask about this scene once you arrive, because my final question will be here. Well, before I go my final question, can we expect to see Quan Wiggins back on the G podcast? Is that something we can expect to see? Okay, absolutely. So shout out to that. So y'all don't worry. We're going to get him back on. If you got questions that you might have for Quan, leave them in the comments, drop them, because we're going to have him back on and I will make sure I ask. But what I want to know, and as we wrap up, seeing that you've been here in New York and I've been following from, like, I've seen the growth over time. Like I said, I remember when you went up there, I was like, Quan went to New York. Crazy. Like,
no, that's what everybody said. Everybody
crazy.
Said, like, yo, just disappeared. Like,
went to New York? Crazy.
Like,
okay.
I didn't have like I'm planning. There was no going away. It was just one night I popped up. That's what everybody say.
And then since then, I've noticed like the steady pace of, and then I've even seen you do shows at like major clubs that I hear them promote on venues like the Breakfast Club, for example. So like I start seeing that you doing shows at some of these places that like is top tier in the city. I'm like, that Quan up there doing his thing. If there's one thing we can leave the audience with, somebody who might be pursuing a passion, no clue where to start, and going to New York City, like specifically for what you do, pursuing your career as an actor, if you could leave somebody with one little just nugget to say, like, look, man, if you're serious about pursuing acting, this would be one thing I would highly encourage you to consider. What would that thing be for anybody watching?
Man, in truth, man, it would be the same thing that was said to me when I first started, or was trying to start. So I remember when I wanted to do comedy, I remember asking around. I had heard about a comedy show at this church back in Durham. And I went to the comedy show and I thought the comedian did a good job. And I walk up to him after, I said, hey, man, I'm thinking about trying to do comedy. What should I do? And then he was like, do it, and just walked off. And that's the advice, bro.
Do it.
That's it, bro. You know, there's no magic, there's no poetry. You don't need anybody to give you any kiss. If it's something you want to do, just do it, man. That's really all to it.
It doesn't matter how you feel.
Man, shout out to Quan for joining the G podcast. We gonna have him back on. I hope y'all enjoyed this episode. Quan, once again, my brother, much love to you. Not much luck, but many blessings, man. Like I said, like, I don't know what the future holds, but the dedication and the sacrifice that you've already invested into your craft, you're going to be able to reap what you've sown continuously because you continue to do it. And so if there's any one thing, like, I can't wait to see where we are 6 months from now, a year from now. I'm going to be following you closely. This is a home, and we're going to continue to support what you're doing here, man. So is there anything that people should be aware about that they could go watch or view here before we get out of here? Maybe someone watching in New York can see you live here in the near future, and then we'll get out.
Yeah, I do live shows every day of the week, so I usually post those on my Instagram. But also coming up, and this is April, in May, we're doing a month-long run of our play, Race the Movie to Play, which is a spoof of, you know how Hollywood loves to make like these movies about like racism and slavery and always making, white people got to save the day. Well, we're picking on all of those things. You know what I mean? We have a comedy spoof pointing those things out. So it's called Race the Movie to Play. And that'll be at the Soho Playhouse throughout the month of May. And the tickets are available on at the Soho Playhouse's website. All
right, man. Y'all make sure y'all check that out. I got all of Quan's information in the description. Make sure you follow him on the social medias. This is the G podcast, where we focus on family, friends, finances, freedom, and our future, and everything else. This is the G podcast. We appreciate y'all listening live.
Yo, appreciate you, brother. Appreciate you.
Shout out to you, my brother. We are live. We appreciate y'all.